Welcome to True Scary Story, where real-life horror stories will send chills down your spine. Do you dare step into a world of unexplained mysteries, eerie events, and terrifying real-life encounters? In each episode, we take you closer to fear itself, uncovering ghostly tales, supernatural phenomena, and haunting truths lurking in everyday life. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story. Get ready to face the darkest fears you never imagined. The sign at the park's entrance was barely legible. Its once bright colors faded to dull smears of red and blue. Maplewood Park, it read, though years of neglect had made the letters almost indistinguishable. The chain-link fence surrounding the perimeter sagged in places, rust creeping along its metal frame like veins on an aging hand. Beyond it, the park lay in ruins. Swing sets rusted and still, the merry-go-round half buried in weeds, and a jungle gym missing entire sections, as if something had taken bites out of its metal structure. No one had set foot in Maplewood Park in years. At least no one who ever spoke about it afterward. It had been abandoned for reasons that no one could quite explain. Some said a child had gone missing there decades ago, vanishing into thin air. Others whispered about the strange noises that echoed through the trees at night, laughter that didn't belong to any living person. Whatever the truth, the town had let the park rot, pretending it didn't exist, even as it stood in plain sight on the outskirts of town. But Daniel Carter didn't believe in ghost stories. An urban explorer with a growing YouTube channel, Daniel had made a career out of visiting forgotten places, peeling back the layers of time to uncover their secrets. Maplewood Park was just another location to him, another relic of the past waiting to be documented. Armed with a camera, a flashlight, and an old newspaper article about the park's closure, he hopped the rusted fence and landed on the cracked pavement inside. The air smelled of damp earth and decay. Overgrown grass whispered in the faint breeze, and the skeletal remains of trees loomed overhead, their branches curling like grasping fingers. A shiver ran through Daniel, but he shook it off. He had been in creepier places before. Abandoned hospitals, derelict asylums, Maplewood Park was nothing compared to those. Still, there was something about the silence here. It was too thick, too absolute, as if the world outside had turned its back on this place. He started filming, panning his camera across the rusted playground equipment. All right, guys, we're here at Maplewood Park, abandoned for over 30 years, untouched by time. He kept his tone light, casual, but there was an edge of unease in his voice that he hoped wouldn't translate to the footage. He moved deeper into the park, stepping over roots that had cracked through the pavement like scars. The old carousel stood in the center, its faded horses frozen mid-gallop. He reached out and gave it a push. It groaned in protest, the sound too loud in the unnatural quiet. That was when he heard it. A giggle. Soft. Faint. Like a child hiding just out of sight. Daniel froze. He held his breath, listening. The wind had died completely. The air was so still that he could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then another sound, a creak like someone stepping onto the wooden bridge that led to the slide. But there was no one there. A trick of the wind, he told himself. The mind played tricks in places like this. He turned back to his camera, forcing a smile. All right, guys. I think we might have just heard something. Could be an animal. Could be the wind. Or maybe he let the sentence trail off, knowing his viewers would love the suspense. He continued filming, making his way toward the swing set. One of the swings hung lopsided, its chain snapped, but the other remained intact. As he neared it, he noticed something strange. The seat was moving, swaying gently as if someone had just left it. Daniel felt a prickle at the back of his neck. "Okay," he muttered to himself. "That's weird." He reached out and stopped the swing with his hand. It was cold, too cold, like it had been sitting in deep shade despite the weak afternoon sun filtering through the clouds. Then before his eyes, the swing jerked forward, hard. Daniel stumbled back, his breath catching. His camera was still rolling, capturing everything, but his hands trembled as he adjusted the focus. "What the hell?" he whispered. The giggle came again, closer. Daniel turned sharply, his flashlight beam slicing through the shadows. He aimed it at the slide, at the bridge, at the trees beyond the park's edge. Nothing. He swallowed, forcing himself to laugh. "All right, guys, someone's messing with me." But he didn't believe his own words. Then he saw it. A figure standing at the far end of the park, near the old ticket booth. A child. A little girl, her dress pale and tattered, her hair hanging in limp strands over her face. His stomach dropped. He lifted the camera, zooming in. But as soon as he did, she was gone. Vanished. Daniel felt a cold sweat break out across his forehead. He had filmed plenty of eerie places before, but this was different. This wasn't just a crumbling building or an empty hallway with strange acoustics. Something was here. Something was watching him. A rustling sound came from behind him and he spun just in time to see something dark between the trees. A blur of white, of movement too quick for his eyes to follow. He wasn't alone in Maplewood Park. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. He backed away, breathing hard, pulse hammering in his throat. His camera was still recording, but he wasn't thinking about content anymore. He was thinking about getting out. Then, the carousel began to turn. Slowly, agonizingly, the rusted ride groaned to life, its faded horses rising and falling in ghostly rhythm. There was no wind, no force to push it, and yet, it moved. Daniel ran. He didn't stop to check his footage, didn't look back as he vaulted the fence and sprinted to his car. Only when he was inside, doors locked, did he dare to glance at the park again. It was still, silent, as if nothing had happened at all. But Daniel knew better, and when he finally worked up the courage to review his footage, his blood ran cold. Because in the final frame, just before he turned to run, the camera had captured the carousel in motion. And on the back of one of the horses sat the little girl grinning at him, whispering something he couldn't hear, something he never wanted to know.